So in the till previous session, so we have seen STLC process in the previous session, software testing life cycle. So as part of software testing life cycle, we have discussed about what is test planning and then test designing or test development or then test execution and bug reporting and finally test closure. So these are the different activities we do as part of STLC, software testing life cycle process. Okay. So now today we are going to discuss in detail each and every phase. Okay, so what are the different terms we have to use, like what is use case, what is a test scenario, what is a test case, how test case look like, how test plan look like. So we will see each and everything in detail. Now let me share a small presentation. Just a moment. Okay. All right. So these are the different phases. So we have seen yesterday: test plan, test design, test execution, defect reporting, and test closure. Now let us start with the test plan. So what is exactly test plan means? In the previous session we have seen. So test plan is nothing but a document. So which describes the scope, test scope, strategy, like objectives, schedule, deliverables, and resources required to perform testing for a software product. So test plan should be done before itself. So before starting the testing, we will do the planning. So in the test plan, we have to specify everything. So what we are going to test, what we are not going to test, and what is in scope, what is not in our scope. And then what are the different test strategies we are going to use, what are the different testing types we are going to use while testing, and when we have to test, when we have to conduct the testing, that means the schedules, and who will conduct the testing, like human resources, and where exactly we conduct the testing, on which environment we will conduct the testing, like hardware environment. So all these things we have to specify in the document that is called as a test plan document. So here I have listed out some of the points or some of the items which we have to keep in your test plan document while you are preparing it. So the first thing is like overview. We have to specify like why, what is the project and why we are preparing the test plan document. We have to just write a small description under overview. And then scope in the sense inclusion, test environments and exclusions will be specified, like what to test, what not to test. And how we will know that, again depends on the requirement document. Whatever the requirement customer says, we have to test them, and whatever is not part of the requirement, we don't test them. Okay, so scope is nothing but what to test, what not to test. So these things we have to specify in that. Test strategy means what kind of testing we are going to conduct. First smoke testing, then sanity testing, regression testing, functional testing. So these are the different strategies we are going to use, like automation or manual testing, what kind of strategy we are going to use. So that is a part of test strategy. Then defect reporting and procedure. So how we are going to report the bugs and what is the exact process we follow to report the defect from the tester to developer. Okay, so later I'll discuss about defect life cycle. There you will understand exactly the procedure, how you are going to report the defect to the developer. And then roles and responsibilities. So in a testing team, there are multiple people will be there, and the roles and responsibilities clearly defined in the test plan document, like test engineer, test lead, project manager, okay, everybody in the team. So we have to clearly specify the roles and responsibilities, and who is author of the document, who will review it. All these things will be part of it. Test schedules means when we have to conduct what kind of testing. So clearly we have to specify the dates also, dates along with the what kind of activity we are going to do, what kind of testing we are going to do. So that we have to specify in the test plan document. And test deliverables. So test deliverables means each and every phase of a testing, we are going to deliver certain documents. Like test plan document is one deliverable, test cases are deliverables, and defect report is a deliverable, test execution report is a deliverable. So after completion of each and every phase or step, we are going to deliver a small document. So they are all deliverable. So what kind of documents we are going to deliver? So that should be specified in the test plan document itself. And the pricing, how much pricing it will be take. So again, that is taken care by the management. Entry and exit criteria. So when we have to start our testing, when we have to exit from the testing. So the entry criteria and exit criteria should be clearly mentioned in the test plan document. Suspension and resumption criteria. So suspension and resumption criteria means sometimes immediately we'll stop testing. Suppose something is not working, something is broken in our application. Okay, we'll stop testing, and then immediately after recovery, like after getting the new build, after getting the fix, immediately we'll again resume our testing. So when exactly, in which cases we have to stop the testing and which cases we have to resume the testing. So that is also specified in the test plan document, that is suspension and resumption criteria. Then tools, what kind of tools we are going to use for testing purpose, including manual tools also, like even Excel documents or Word documents, or bug tracking tools like automation testing tools or test management tools. Whatever tools we are using in our testing, we can specify those tools. And risks and mitigations means what? Suppose while project is going on, there will be some risks. Okay, so a risk can be come from any side. And what is a mitigation? Mitigation in the sense, what is another plan? Suppose a team member in the project taken a leave for long time, and that is a risk for project, right? The one resource is gone, so there is a risk for project immediately. So we need to replace that person with some other guy. So that is a risk. What is a mitigation plan is, we can replace the person. Similarly, hardware. Suppose immediately in the middle of the project some hardware failures or happen, or some systems got crashed. That is a risk. So what is a mitigation plan? So we have to always maintain the backup machines. So risks and mitigations also we have to clearly specify in the test plan document. And finally, approvals. From who and all we need to get approval. Test plan approve. Who will approve the test plan? Who will approve the test case? So all these things we have to specify clearly in the test plan document. So these are the main items which you have to clearly mention in the test plan document. In interview, people may ask you what is test plan and what it contains. What test plan contains. Then you have to tell all these important options. The mainly the scope of the testing, what to test, what are the things we are not going to test. So that's the first and most important thing we have to specify in the test plan. And schedules, strategy, and what are the deliverables. Okay, so all these points you have to remember, at least 5 to 6 points, and then you can clearly say in your interview. So this is a test plan content, test plan document content. So later I'll show you how test plan will be, how you have to write the test plan and all these things. So this is a just understanding purpose. What is test plan and what it contains. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the few important terminologies we are going to use while test designing. So use case, test scenario, test case. So these are all topics, very, very important, guys. So you will definitely get interview questions from this. Definitely people will ask you questions from these topics. Okay, please remember this and listen carefully. Use case, test scenario, test case. Use case, test scenario, and test case. What exactly they means? Use case. What is a use case means? Use case is basically describes a requirement, so which will help us to understand the requirement more clear, which will help us to understand the requirement more clear. For example, let's say I have FRS document or function requirement document, and customer describes the requirement within one paragraph, a small with the text only. They use some text with some paragraph or two paragraphs they have written in the document. Okay, that is one kind of requirement. And in the same document, let us say customer is given some kind of a picture or diagram, and which clearly saying the flow, what a user will do, what action will do, what is the outcome he will get. The same thing is written in the text format. So these two are the representation. What exactly customer requirement is representing with two different ways. Either he can write in the paragraphs using only text, or he can draw some pictures and flow. By that also we can understand. And which one is more clear? So always the pictures are more clear to understand, right? So use case is seems like that. Use case is nothing but a kind of a picture or a data flow diagram by which we can understand the requirement more clear. So that is a part of the requirement. So use cases also specified in the FRS document along with the text. So use case describes the requirement, and mainly use cases, there three options will be there. In the picture itself, they will specify three main things: actor, action, goal, or outcome. Actor, action, goal, or outcome. So what does that mean? Actor is nothing but a user, and user performs certain action, then he will get some outcome. Let's say take a login application. So as a user, I'll perform the login. After successful login, I successfully log into application, I'll get the home page. So there are three things are there. So user is nothing but an actor, login operation, that is nothing but an action. After successful login, I will get the home page, that is our goal or outcome. So use case is like that. So by seeing the picture, we can easily understand the functionality of the application. So which contains the three parts: actor, action, and goal. So as an actor, as a user, what you have to do? Process. Action is nothing but a process. And then what is the goal you will, what is the outcome you will get after completion of the action? So use case contains these three things. Use case talks about these three things. And by seeing the use case, we can clearly understand the functionality or the flow in the application. So that is a part of the requirement. So test the scenario is a different. So test the scenario is nothing but a possible area to be tested. So what we exactly we have to test? In the I have a 10 requirements. In all the 10 requirements, each and every requirement there is again different scenarios will be there. So scenario means exactly what we have to test. Okay, what we have to test in your application, where exactly you have to conduct the testing, what we have to test, that is test the scenario. So based upon the use cases, we will derive the test scenarios. So to derive the test scenarios, what is the input? Use cases. Where exactly we can find use cases? In the FRS document or functional requirement specification document. So in that, use cases will be defined. And who will write the use cases? Tester will not write use cases. Okay, product managers or product owners and whoever is written the document, FRS document or requirements, they will create the use cases which are part of the requirement. And based on the use cases, as a tester, we have to create our test scenarios and test cases. So first initial level, we will identify all the test scenarios, like what to test. We have to be very, very clear on that. So once you identify all the scenarios, and for each scenario, we will write multiple test cases. For each scenario, we will write multiple test cases. Okay. So use case basically describes the requirement, which is belongs to the requirement created by the business product manager or business owner, who is responsible for writing the FRS document. They will create the use cases or part of the FRS document. Whereas test scenario is a area where exactly we have to conduct testing. It basically describes the what to test, and test case describes the how to test. So what to test and how to test. So test case is a basically step by step action to be performed to validate the functionality of application under test. So whatever application we have and whatever the functionality we have to test that functionality, we will go step by step. So we will perform step by step actions on your application. That is called as a test case. So test case contains a multiple steps which we have to perform to validate the functionality of the application. So which is mainly focusing on how to test the functionality. That is a basic difference between test scenario and test case. So test scenario describes what to test case describes how to test, use case describes the part of requirement, use case describes the requirement. It tells us about the requirement more clearly, it helps us to understand the requirement more clearly. And by using use cases, we will define the test scenarios. By using the test scenarios, we will write the test cases. So this is a relation between use case, test scenario, and test case. Guys, are you clear? So please confirm in the chat window, which is very, very important entry question. Use case is a describes the requirement which is part of the requirement document. Test scenario is representing the what to test. We have to write the test case. We have to identify the scenarios as a tester. There's a tester responsibility. And writing the test case is also tester responsibility. Based on the test scenarios, we will derive the multiple test cases. Okay, so this is a concept. Now, this is a sample use case, guys. I told you the use case contains three different parts. Remember, use case contains three different parts: actor, action, outcome, right? So if I just look at here, library user, he is a user, actor. and he can perform certain operations, register a book, register book loan, register book return, and query book availability, add new book. So these are the three items the user can perform. And what librarian can perform, he can add a new book. So by seeing the picture, we'll understand the flow actually. As a user, what are the actions I can do? As a librarian, what are the action I can do? Okay, so this is simple small use case which describes a requirement. Now, use case versus test case. So this is another important interview question people will ask in interview. What is the difference between use case and test case? As I told you before, use case describes the functional requirement, which is part of the requirement document prepared by business analyst or product manager who is written the product functionality. They are written the use cases, like which we call them as a business analyst. Business analyst. So use case describes a functional requirement prepared by the business analyst. Test case describes a test steps procedure prepared by the test engineer. So two differences, guys. Use case is basically describes the functional requirement. Test case describes the test steps or procedures. Use case prepared by the business analyst. Test case is prepared by the test engineers. Okay, this is, and test case will be prepared based on the use case. If you want to prepare the test case, you need to have scenario first, and those scenarios will be derived from the use cases by understanding the use cases. So this is a basic difference between use case and test case. Now, test scenario versus test case. So test scenario versus test case. So to write the test case, first we need to have a test scenario. And from where we will get the test scenario? From the use case. Okay, so use case, based on the use case, we will derive the multiple test scenarios. For each test scenario, we will have a multiple test cases. So if I just look at here, test scenario is describes basically what to be tested, and test case is how to be tested. And for example, here this is my test scenario. If I just look at here, checking the functionality of the login button. So checking the functionality of the login button. So that is a test scenario. And what the test cases for that? Test case one, click the button without entering username and password. Click the button only entering the username. Click the button while entering wrong username and wrong password. So these are the different test cases we can write for one test scenario. Okay, this is a small example of test scenario versus test cases. Then test suite, we can also call it test suite. Some people call it as a test suite, and we can also call it test suite, which is basically a group of test cases. So we will group the similar type of test cases. For example, all the sanity test cases, I will choose and group them into one single unit, which is called as a sanity test suite. All the regression test cases, I will group them. That is called as a regression test suite. All functional test cases, all GUI test cases, I will group them, which is called as a GUI test suite. So what is a test suite? Means a group of test cases which are belongs to same category, which is called as a test suite. So if I just look at here, and test suite 1, test suite 2, test suite 3, each suite contains a different category of the test case. So test suite contains the same category of the test cases, and each test suite is having a different category of the test cases. Okay, understand the terminology, which is very important. And now finally, what is test case? So just now we have discussed a test case is a set of actions or step-by-step actions executed to validate a particular feature or a functionality of your application. So suppose I have a login screen, I want to test it. What is the test case for login screen? A login test. So open the URL, entering the username, entering the password, clicking on submit button. So these are the step-by-step action which we have to perform to test the login screen. Okay, and which is also contains a expected value. When you perform these actions, what we are going to expect, that is also part of the test case. So a test case is a set of actions executed to validate particular feature or functionality of your software application. Then test case contains, so test case is also a document, guys. Okay, so test case is also a document which is also contains a different options like a test plan. But initially, Test cases will be prepared either in the Word document or Excel document. Later, we will upload these test cases in the test management tools. Okay, because at the early stages, what will happen is as soon as we have written the test cases, we don't directly upload the tools because we have to conduct multiple reviews with the team, and they will also give you some feedback, and they will also ask us to change some changes in our test cases. So reviews will happen in multiple cycles. So after we completed all the reviews, and once I get the signed off from the teams, then finally we will upload the test cases in the tool. Test management tools like Jira is also there, so we can upload all the test cases in the tools. But at the initial level, we always prefer Excel file to write all the test cases. So which is called as a test case document. Okay. And normally what test case contains? Every test case will identify with some ID. Every test case is a unique which is identified by using an ID. So every test case is having ID. And test case title we have to specify just one line or two lines, and it is not a bigger title, a small title. While reading the title, we have to know exactly what is test case referring to. And description we can specify, and 3 to 4 lines of description we can write for test case. And precondition means what? Before executing the test case, what are the conditions should be satisfied? That is a precondition. For example, so I want to perform the login test. So what is a precondition? I should be able to open the application first. The URL should work fine. I should get the page. Then I can continue with the login. So that is a precondition. So for every test case to execute, before executing the test case, there will be a precondition. And then priority means what? In which order we have to execute the test case. Suppose I have 100 test cases, which test case I have to execute first? So how we will know that? So we have to prioritize the test cases, and based on the priority we have to execute the test cases in proper order, like P0, P1, P2, P3. First we have to give P0 priority to the P0. Very important test cases, and basically they are related to smoke and sanitary test cases, and P1 test cases which are normally belongs to regression test cases, and P2 P3 test case, P2 test cases which are basically belongs to functional test cases, main major flows of your application. P3 test cases means UI related test cases. So based on the priority, we are going to execute our test cases in proper order. Then requirement ID. So for which requirement we are writing the test case, we have to also specify the requirement ID. Steps or actions. What are the different steps we have to perform? And those we have to specify. And what is the expected result? After performing the steps or actions, what is our expected result? So that is also we have to specify as part of the test case. And actual results we will update later. Actual results column will be empty while writing the test cases, but once you start the execution, then you will update this column with the actual results. Then if you find any mismatched results between expected and actual, then you can report that as a bug. And sometimes some test cases also require some test data, and we should also prepare the test data before writing the test cases, and the test data also should be specified in the test case. Okay, so these are the different items which we have to write while creating the test cases. Now if I just look at this, this is a small template. The test case document looks like this. So if I just look at here, module ID, requirement ID, testing type, priority, and it will not be exactly the same in every company. People will change the template according to their requirement. But the major important thing is you will not miss this one. Test cases steps will be compulsory. It should be there. Actual results, expected results should be there, and precondition, what is the scenario, and test case ID and priorities should be mentioned in the test case document. But it will not be the exactly the same everywhere. Slight changes will be there, but these are the major main items should be part of your test case. So if I just look at here, each row is representing one test case. Okay, test case ID 1, so 2, 3, 4, we have to provide the unique test case ID. Okay, test case ID will be the unique for every test case. We should not repeat the same ID for multiple test cases. So test case template seems like this. In Excel file is more comfortable, so we can use Excel sheet as a test case template. All right, so this is all about test case. So this is a test case template, guys. So whenever you want to write the test cases, we use certain templates. And first we, as a beginning level, we write the test cases in the template. And once your reviews are completed, signed off, then we upload them into the test management tools. Okay, fine. So now the next one is the requirement traceability matrix. What is requirement traceability matrix? We can say RTM. So in interview, you may get one important question, guys. So you have written 100 test cases, right? So how exactly you will know whether you covered all the scenarios or not? So whether you have written test cases for all the scenarios or not, how we will know that? So this is an interview question. So you may have 100 test cases you may write, but how you make sure whether you covered all the requirements which are mentioned in the specification document or not? So the answer for this requirement traceability matrix, as a tester, while writing the test cases, parallelly, we are also writing one more document called requirement traceability matrix called RTM. So what it says, which contains the requirement IDs corresponding test case IDs. So whenever you write the test cases, you will clearly specify them. So for which requirement, what are the test cases we are going to write, and requirement id which will map with test case ids. Maybe one requirement can have multiple test cases, so requirement id corresponding test case ids you will write in specific sheet or document, that is called as a requirement traceability matrix. So by seeing the document you will understand exactly, okay, are we covered these requirements as per test cases or not. Okay, so that is the requirement traceability matrix. So RTM describes the mapping of requirements with the test cases. And the main purpose of RTM is to see all test cases are covered so that no functionality should miss while doing the software testing. And what it contains: requirement ID and requirement description. If required, we can also specify the description of the requirement. And then what are the test cases we have written for that requirement? Test case IDs we have to specify. So that is requirement traceability matrix. Very, very important. So who will prepare that? Tester will prepare it while writing the test cases itself. And he will cross check here whether he covered all the test cases, all the requirement, he covered all the test cases or not, which is very, very important. And requirement traceability matrix looks like this. So requirement number, requirement description, and test case IDs you can specify, because one requirement can have multiple test case IDs. So test case ID we can specify, and sometimes we can also update the status, but not mandatory required. Okay, but requirement ID should be there. The test case ID should be there. So mapping between the requirement IDs and test case is called a requirement traceability matrix. So based on this, we will know exactly, are we covered all the requirements? Are we written the test cases for every requirement or not? So we will know that based on this requirement traceability matrix. Very, very important. Then test environment, guys. Okay, test environment. So what is test environment means? So once your design is completed, so you have written test plan, you have written test cases, and everything is ready. And before getting the build from the developer, you have to set up the QA environment. So what is environment means? Hardware and software environment. So if you want to execute your test cases, certain hardware environment is required. Similar, certain software environment is required. So that you have to set up during test environment. So test environment should be a platform which is exactly replica of the customer platform, guys. Very, very important. So where exactly customer use the software in their environment. So once you install the software in the customer environment, he will have some certain configurations, right? He will use certain number of machines. He will use certain number of softwares. The same kind of environment we have to set up in QA in our company, because our testing is conducted in some kind of environment and the software is using in some other environment, there will be conflict. So whatever the customer is working on, what kind of environment they are working on, the same kind of environment we have to create in our testing. So what is environment means? Software and hardware environment. So what kind of machines they are using, how much RAM should be there, how much hard disk it should be there,
what kind of processor they are using internally in the computer, and how much network speed they are using. Okay, these are all hardware related requirements. And what is software related requirements? Suppose to install a software, there is some other softwares also required for support. What kind of software they are using, what kind of versions they are using, and what kind of word document, excel documents are they are using, that is comes under the software. So in the test environment we have to use, and also on what kind of operating system they are using, or they are using mac, or they are using windows or linux, and what kind of databases they are using, mysql or sql server, what kind of databases they are using. Okay, and based on this we will collect all the environment requirements. Again, that is a part of your requirement. So we have to understand the customer environment, and exactly we have to replicate that environment in the testing. So then only we can conduct the testing, and the same test cases will be passed in the customer environment also. Okay, we have to give the priority to the customer. So in whatever the environment they are working on, same kind of environment we have to set up. That's the first and most important thing we have to do before getting the build from the developer. Okay, so test environment is a platform specially built for test case execution on the software product, right? So it is created by integrating all required software and hardware along with the proper network configurations. And test environment simulates production or real-time environment. Means what is a production environment? Means where exactly customer will work, that is a production environment. And real-time environment or customer environment, so that environment should be simulated. And another name of test environment is test bed. So this is a technical term. So somebody may ask you, what is test bed? Test bed is a nothing but a software and hardware environment we create to perform the testing. So test bed is an environment or collection of software and hardware environment which we can create to perform the testing. That is called as a test bed. Okay, test bed is a technical term which we can use alternatively for test environment. Simple. So remember this. This is a text execution. Okay. Now let's move on to the next, test execution. So after test environment is done, okay, and after that we will receive the build from the developer. So till now, what are the activities we have done? We have done the test plan. We have created our test cases, test scenarios, test cases, traceability matrix, and also we have set up the environment. Then we are waiting for the build from the tester. So we are waiting for the build from the development. So developer will provide the build. So once the developer is provide the build to the testing team, then we will install that product or application or software in the QA environment, whatever environment we set up. Then we continue the testing. So during this particular phase, testing team will carry out the testing based on the test plans and test cases prepared. And what is the entry criteria? Test cases should be there, test data and test plan. Okay, so before starting the testing, you should have test cases ready and approved. Okay, test case should be approved. Until unless your test case is approved, you should not start testing. Test data is required sometimes for your test case, and test plan is also should be with you, because you need to know the timelines and everything. So you have to keep these things in your hand. That is entry criteria. Then test execution will start. So what you will do in the test execution, test cases are executed based on the test planning. Test status of the test cases are marked like passed, failed, blocked, or run, or any other statuses. Most of the times we update pass, failed, or blocked. Okay, and while executing the test case, may be passed, it may be failed, or it may be blocked because of some reasons. So we will update the status. And documentation of the test results and log defects for failed cases is done. So whenever we find the mismatches between expected and actual, we will fail those test cases and report the defects to the developer. And we will also prepare a separate document, defect log document, where we will write all the defects. All the blocked and failed test cases are assigned bug IDs. For every bug or defect we reported to the developer should have some bug ID. And retesting once the defects are fixed. Suppose developer has got fixed those defects and they have given the another bill, again we have to conduct the retesting. And defects are tracked till the closure. So whatever the defects we reported to the developer, we have to track those defects till we close the testing, till we stop our testing. Okay, there will be number of defects will be there. Some defects will be reported, some defects will be pending, some defects will be postponed to the next release. Different statuses will be there, we have to track all the defects. And finally, deliverables. So provides the defect and test case execution report with the completed results. After completion of test execution, what kind of reports we have, what kind of documents we have? We have a defect report which contains all the list of defects and test execution status. So these documents we will need to have after completion of test execution. So test planning, test designing, test environment setup, then test execution. So we will discuss in detail about the bugs or defects, which is a huge concept. Okay, so test execution, and then guidelines for test execution. So when you perform the executing your test cases, when you're trying to execute your test cases, we have to follow certain guidelines. The first guideline is the build being deployed to the QA environment is most important part of the test execution cycle. So always remember guys, development environment is different, QA environment is different. So development is environment is used for developing a software. They are having different machines, different kind of configuration. Testing team is having a different kind of environment, test environment. So it is not sure like whatever the software installation is successfully worked on dev environment, but there is we don't have any surety like the same kind of application will be successfully installed on Q environment. There is no guarantee, we have to do the testing on that, because environment will be different. Sometimes these kind of conflicts will be there between developer and tester. So developer says it is successfully installed on my environment, tester says no, there is some configuration errors are coming in my environment. So then you have to check the exact environment or not. So but ultimate goal of tester is we have to always make sure our software should work again customer expected platform, customer expected environment, not on the developer, not on the QA. So 100% QA environment should be simulate the customer environment. So test cases application should work on testing environment, not on the developer environment. Okay, so test execution happens in multiple cycles. So test execution should be done on the Q environment. Test execution happen in multiple cycles. We cannot execute all the test cases in one cycle, guys. Okay, we will get a multiple cycles because we will get the multiple builds from the developer. So during the process, we will report multiple bugs. Developer fix it and will give you again multiple build, another build. Again, we will retest. We do regression testing and continue with the rest of the test cases. So again, we'll report the defect in another build. Again, developer will fix it and give another build. So testing will happen in multiple cycles. So test execution phase consists execution of test cases, and sometimes we will also automate the test cases. As soon as your test cases are passed manually, we'll immediately automate those test cases so that in the upcoming builds, we no need to execute the same cases again and again manually. Because if I automated those test cases, we can run the automation script in the upcoming releases, upcoming cycles. So manual effort will be reduced. So that is the main usage of automation, automating the test cases. It will reduce a lot of time and also a lot of effort in each and every cycle of testing. So these are the guidelines which we have to follow while test execution. And then finally we'll talk about defects or bugs, which is very, very important concept. You will get a lot of questions in interview. People may ask different type of questions on this. Okay, so let's understand few important concepts from this. Defect or bug, both are same. Remember guys, some people will call as a defects, some people will call as a bugs, or some less number of people are called as a issue. Issue is also right term, but it is not more technical, it's a generic term. But error is a different, mistake is a different. Don't say mistake or don't say error. Error is a programming related, so developer use that term. Mistake is a human mistake. If I, as a human, as a tester, if I write some incorrect test case that leads to missing of the defect, that is a mistake. As a human, I committed that. What is a bug and defect? Any mismatched functionality between expected and actual. Suppose when executing my test case on my application, when executing my test case and my application, I'm expecting something, some outcome I'm expecting from the application. But actually it is working in different way. So that is a mismatch between expected and actual. If you found something mismatch between expected and actual, we can consider that as a bug or a defect. So we have to report that to the developer, and developer will understand that, and if it is really bug or really defect, then he will fix it and provide the another build. So any mismatched functionality found in an application is called as a defect, bug, or issue. And here we should not use term called error or mistake. So during the test execution, test engineers are reporting mismatches as a defects to the developer through templates or using tools. Most of the times we use the tools, guys. But initially, for our purpose, we will prepare a document, like we will prepare some Excel sheet, we will report all, we will write all the defect information, but we don't send the exact same format to the developer. We will have a bug tracking or defect tracking tools. So there you will get a small form. In that form, we will fill all the details, like what is the defect ID will be automatically generated, defect description, what is the severity, what is the priority, what are the steps we have to perform to reproduce a defect. Okay, and who is reporting the defect, and a screenshot you can attach for the defect, and log files you can attach. Okay, and once you provided all this information, then once you submit it, it will automatically go to corresponding developer who is implemented that particular feature, or who is developed that particular feature in application. That developer will automatically get the details, and then developer will work on the defect. So that is actual process we follow. So in the coming session, I'll show you how to report the defects. Okay, and there are n number of tools are available in the market to reporting the defects. Some of open source tools also there, like free tools also available. Some of them are paid tools also available. So we have a ClearQuest, DevTrack, Jira, Quality Center, or we can say ALM and Bugzilla. So these are all tools we can use it for bug tracking tools. Okay, bug tracking reporting tools. And especially when you say Jira and Quality Center, they are basically test management tools. So there are two differences you need to understand, guys. Test management tools are different, bug tracking tools are different. So bug tracking tools will use only for bug tracking, we cannot do any other activity. They are bug tracking tools. Like if I say here, ClearQuest is a purely bug tracking or defect tracking tool. DevTrack is a bug tracking tool. Bugzilla also purely bug tracking tool. We can use those tools only for bug tracking or defect reporting tools. We can use them to report the defects to the developers. But Jira, Quality Center, these tools are test management tools. Means what? We can track each and every activity during the testing, like beginning from the beginning of requirement. We can define the requirements, we can write the scenarios, we can write the test cases, we can update the execution status, we can report the defects, everything we can do in those tools. They are called test management tools. So not only defect reporting, apart from the defect reporting, we can also do some other test management activities. We can also track test management activities. Those tools are called test management tools. So understand the difference. So defect tracking tools used for only for defect tracking, defect reporting. But test management tools can also use defect reporting. Apart from that, other activities also we can track in those tools. Fine. So we are going to learn Jira also. So once you start understanding Jira, then you will know exactly how we can track all the testing activities. Okay, so Jira is a tool, is a test management tool, or we can say agile tool, where you will track everything. We will define the requirements, we'll write the test cases. So Jira tool can be used by everybody in the team, guys. Not only testers, developers also use Jira tool to track their activities. Okay, it is a basically agile tool. So I'll explain this in detail in the coming session, so don't be hurry. Okay, just understand what is this tool and how we can perform as a tester, as a developer. Both will use Jira tool. As a tester, I will define the requirement. Requirement define will be business unit. So business owner or product manager will define the requirements in the Jira tool, and for those requirements, as a tester, I will write the test cases and I report the bugs, and I'll also update the execution status. But what developer will do? Developer also have some their unit test cases, integration test cases, execution status, everything. So they also use Jira tool parallelly. Okay, but all the project related activities will be tracked in single place. So that is Jira tool. Okay. So now defect report content. So just like a test case document, we also have a defect report. So in the deep one, whenever you report the defect to the developer, what are the different contents you have to specify, which is very, very important entry question also. So whenever you report the defect to the developer, what are the details you have to provide to the developer? So not only defect ID, you have to specify detailed information so the developer can easily understand where exactly the bug is there and how we can fix it. So defect report contains a defect ID. The first, this is a unique identification number for every defect. Then defect description. So defect description says the detailed information, what exactly the defect is. We can write a small description. And version of the application. Suppose, so you will get multiple build from the developer. So each build is having some version number, because you don't know exactly which build is old, which one is the latest build. So every build is given a number called as a uh, build verification number, or we can say build ID. Okay. And that ID also we have to specify, the version number also we have to specify, in which build we found the defect. So build number also we have to specify. And steps means what? To reproduce that bug or defect, what are the steps to be performed on the application? So those steps we have to clearly specify. And date raised, so when exactly we are raising this defect. Reference, and what are the reference documents we referred to consider this is a bug. Suppose we have executed one test case, I found a mismatch, I consider as a bug. But on what basis you are saying that is a bug? You have some reference, right? So what are those reference? Your test case and your requirement document, okay, or design, whatever. So based on that, you consider that as a bug. So you have to specify the reference also sometimes. And detected by, that is normally tester name. Status, every defect is having some status, guys. New, open, in progress, okay, and closed. So different statuses will be keep on changing. So I'll explain that in the defect life cycle, then you will understand what is the status of the defect. So as soon as you raise a new bug or new defect, the status will be the new. So as soon as the developer is started working on the defect, then defect status will be changed as a open. And while working on the defect fixing by the developer, in that time the status will be in progress. Okay, and once the developer is fixed that issue or fixed that bug, the status will be changed as a fixed. And once the developer is fixed that bug and put that change in the build, again we'll get another build. After retesting, if it is working fine, we will close the defect. Then that time the defect status will be changed as a closed. So depends upon the situation and action, the defect status will keep on changing. Finally, the ultimate goal is it should start from the new status and it should end with the closed status. And before releasing the product to the next level or next you for UAT testing or customer, all the defects, whatever we reported to the developer, should be in the closed state. Okay, that is also one of the criteria whenever we exit from the testing. Now, that is all about status. Then, fixed by, who is a developer, who is responsible for fixing that bug, the developer name should come. Date closed, so whenever you close the defect, automatically date will be updated. And severity and priority is very, very important. So now we'll talk about severity and priority. Just a moment. Okay, so now severity and priority. So every defect, guys, every defect whenever you report, we have to, as a tester, we have to assign, we have to tell severity and priority. So we need to discuss more detail what exactly severity and priority means, which is very, very important. So whenever you write a test case, you will prioritize them. Okay, so whenever you write a test case, you prioritize them. So test cases are having only priority. So there the priority says in which order test cases should be executed. But here defect is having two things, severity and priority. I tell you what exactly severity and priority in detail. First, let us start with, okay, just a moment. Yeah, let us start with classification. So severity and priority. Severity and priority we have to assign. This is a tester responsibility. So tester has to specify the severity and priority of the defect before raising the defect to the developer. So severity can be four types, guys. Okay, blocker, critical, major, and minor. Just a moment. Okay, so severity and priority. So severity means a blocker, critical, major, or minor. Blocker, critical, major, minor. And priority means we can start with P1, P2, and P3. So priorities. And these names will be changed one company to another company. Everywhere you cannot find the same thing. So blocker. Sometimes severity we can also refer H1, H2, H3 like this, or S1, S2, S3 like this. So naming convention will be little different, but severity four types: blocker, critical, major, minor. And priority P1, P2, P3. So basically what is severity and what is priority? So here severity describes the seriousness of the defect, how much impact on business workflow. So severity means how the customer workflow will be impacted because of that defect. That is severity, seriousness of the bug. Okay, if bug is come in the customer environment, how much his business flow is impacted, that is called as severity. So severity describes the seriousness of the defect and how much impact on business workflow. And it is four types: blocker, which is also called as a showstopper. This is again technical term. In interview people may ask you what is showstopper. Showstopper in the sense we can call it as a blocker, critical, major, minor. So these are the four types of severities we can assign. Either one of the severity we have to assign to the bug. But when we have to assign blocker, when we have to assign critical, when we have to assign major and minor, we have to understand very clearly. So whenever you report a bug, for example, when you're reporting the bug, or whenever you found something is completely blocked, it is not working at all, like application is crashed at the time of installation, or when you log into your application, login is not working properly, and because of that you are cannot proceed for further testing, right? You cannot proceed your testing. That means you are completely blocked your testing, so you are not able to proceed further. If your login itself is not working, right, how can you execute rest of the test cases? You cannot, so you completely blocked. So in that case you have to assign blocker. You have to give severity as a blocker, means until unless the developer fixed that bug, you cannot proceed further. In that situation you have to specify the defect as a blocker. Understand? So whenever you find a situation where you cannot proceed further, you cannot proceed or you cannot executing the other test cases, in that case you have to report that bug as a blocker. Very very important. So the defect indicates nothing can proceed further. Example, application is crashed, you open the URL of application, it is saying page not found or error in a page, so you cannot go further. And login is not worked, you cannot test anything. So these are the examples for blockers. Now when you have to specify critical, critical means you are not completely blocked. Okay, you are able to proceed, but the main or the basic functionality is not working. Customer business workflow is broken, they cannot proceed further. That means we are able to install the application, we are able to proceed testing, okay, but the major functionality is not working. The main functionality, for example, in internet banking, for example, in internet banking application, what are the major functionalities? Checking the balance, transferring the fund. So these are the major functionalities, right? So to perform these activities, internet banking application is introduced. But after successful login, if that functionality, the major functionality is not working, means what? That is a critical bug. The main, suppose if it is a e-commerce application like Amazon. So what is the main functionality of Amazon? Searching the product, add the product to the cart and do the payment. If this particular flow is not working, that means what? The major functionality is gone, is broken in the application. That kind of bugs we have to consider as a critical. Critical means the main functionality, the basic fundamental functionality of the application is not working. So that impact the customer business and the main functionality is broken. So that is basically comes under critical defects. If the major functionality is not working fine, we have to report that bug as a critical. Examples: fund transfer is not working in net banking. That's a main functionality in internet banking, right? So that is a critical functionality. So we have to report that bug as a critical. So ordering product in e-commerce application is not working. That's a major flow. Suppose you have to book a cab like Ola or Uber cab, you have to book. So order booking cab functionality itself is not working after login. So that's a major functionality, basic functionality. It should supposed to perform, right? So those are all called as a critical bugs. Critical bugs. Then major. So major, when we have to provide a major severity, here functionality works fine. Okay, there is no problem with the feature or functionality, but somehow undesirable behavior. Somehow the undesirable behavior. For example, let us take a Gmail application. So in the Gmail application, you are sending a mail to some other guys. You put some CC or BCC, some recipients, and once you compose your email and then click on the submit. As soon as you get this, as soon as you click on the submit, the mail is successfully sent, but you haven't get any confirmation message like your mail is sent successfully like this. But you don't know, as a user, you don't know whether your mail is gone successfully or not. But when you see the sent mail box, whatever you email you already sent, that is part of your sent mail folder. That confirms you. But before that, you have to know some confirmation message there. Until unless you get the confirmation message, user will be in the confusion state. You don't know exactly whatever action or whatever the functionality you have performed is successfully done or not. You don't know exactly, right? But functionality is working fine. Functionality, no major issue. If functionality is broken, that is again comes under the critical. But functionality is working fine, application is working fine, feature is working fine, but somewhere there is undesirable behavior, like confirmation message we haven't get. So that will confuse the user whether send a email successfully or not. So that comes under the major. For example, take a booking cab. So you are booked one cab and you selected the source and destination places. You have booked the cab and request went to the driver, but you haven't get the confirmation message. You are not able to navigate where exactly he is. Okay, but the successfully cab is booked and he is came and he is waiting for you. But you don't know exactly whether book is properly booked or not, because you haven't have any acknowledgement there. So that kind of bugs we reported as a major. Okay, so functionality is working fine, feature is working fine, no issues in the feature, but as a user I should know whatever action I perform, it is working fine or not, successful or not. I should know. For that I need some confirmation from the application. So if that is not working, means they are the major. Okay, so and finally minor defects. So minor defect means that defect will not impact any business or any breakdown. It's very very minor, means like look and feel of the application or spelling, small spelling mistake, alignment, they are all comes under minor. For example, in the login screen. Okay, so for example in the login screen, let me show you. Okay, suppose in the login screen, you have some box like this. Okay, so you have some box like this. Username text box is like this is my username text box, and this is small password box, this is my password box. If I just look at here, the size of the elements is different, but this will not affect any functionality. So when I enter username and password, when I click on OK button, successfully it is login and I'm getting the home page. This will not impact any functionality or any business flow, but the size of the element or the alignment, suppose the button text box will be here or button will be here, the alignment things or color, look and feel of the application or sizes of the images, so these things will be come under minor defects, because they are not impacting any business flow or functionality, and they are not blocking you. You are able to test it, you are able to execute your test cases also on that particular screen. So you will not get any issue except that UI and alignments and everything, spelling mistake. Okay, they are minor defects, a low priority, or minor defects. It won't cause any major breakdown of the system. So those type of bugs we can report as a minor bugs. So these are the four categories of severities. Blocker or showstopper. Whenever you completely blocked, you are not able to proceed further testing, then you have to report that bug as a blocker. And critical, whenever the major functionality, the main functionality of the application is not working, or the customer business flow is impacting or broken, then you have to report as a critical bug. And major means the functionality is working fine, the feature is working fine, but as a user I don't have any acknowledgement from the application. I don't know exactly the working feature is working or not, I don't know exactly. In that case, major. Minor, spelling mistakes, colors, look and fees, alignments, so these things you can report as a minor severity because they are not impacting the business, they are not that much seriously we can take. Okay, so four types of severities, and who will assign the severity to the defect? Tester will assign the severity. Tester will assign the severity. Even priority also tester will assign. So blocker, critical, major, and minor. These are the defect severities. So are you guys clear? Please confirm in the chat window, everyone. So are you guys clear? Defect severity. What is exactly defect severity means? What are the defect type of severities we can assign while reporting the while reporting to the developer? Okay, blocker, critical, major, and minor. Okay, now let us discuss about priority. Okay, just a minute. Yes. So now let us discuss about priority. So whenever you report a defect, we will specify the severity along with the priority. So severity says the seriousness of the defect, how much the business will impact because of the defect. But in the priority describes the importance of defect, how soon the defect should be fixed. So that is representing the priority. So priority describes the importance of the defects. Priority describes the importance of the defect, how soon the developer should fix the defect. So developer will consider the priority. Based on the priority, the developer fix that bug. Okay, and defect priority states the order in which defect should be fixed. Okay, so priority P0, P1, P2. There are three priorities we will have. P0 means high, P1 means we can say medium, P2 means low. High priority, medium priority, low priority. So when we have to give this priority, so whenever you're reporting the defect to the developer, we will anyway specify the severity. Along with that, we should also specify the priority. So when we have to give P0, high. So whenever you want to whenever the developer, you want developer to fix that issue immediately, like the defect must be resolved immediately because that affects the system severely, and you cannot proceed further until that bug is fixed. In that case you will specify the P0. So whenever you report a bug with a P0 priority, developer should immediately work on the defect, immediately has to provide the fix for that, because you are completely blocked there. You cannot go further until unless that bug is fixed. So in those cases we will specify high priority, then medium priority. So when I provide a medium priority P1, then customer will wait for the new versions. Like every version of release will be there. So different versions of software will be released. So when I say P1 or medium, so that bug can be fixed in the upcoming versions. And P2 means very low. The developer can fix it in later releases. So next version is different, next release is different, guys. So in one release, there will be multiple versions. In one release, there will be multiple versions. So even I say P1 medium is, it should be fixed within the same release. That means in multiple versions, some in one specific version or some version within the release, they have to fix that bug. But when I say P2, they will fix that bug in the upcoming releases, not in the versions. Okay, P0, P1, P2. You need to understand this. Seriousness of the defect means severity. Severity means how the defect is impacting the customer business, how serious it is, you have to tell in the case of severity. Defect priority says how soon the developer will fix it. So based on the priority, the developer will choose that particular defect. You may report it 10 defects. Among those 10 defects, developer will not fix all of them at once. They will choose the defects. They will choose the defect based on the priority you specified. So whatever the defects you are assigned P1, P0 priority, developer will work on P0 bugs or P0 defects first. After fixing and closing them, then they will go to P1, then they will go to P2. Based on your priority, the developer will work on those defects. Very, very important. So whenever you report a defect to the developer, you have to provide severity and priority. Severity means the seriousness of the defect. Priority means the importance of the defect. How much important it is. Both you have to specify. But after reporting this, priority can be changed by your leads or manager, test managers or product managers. Okay, priority can be changed. You have given some priority to that bug, but like your customer or your product manager think like, okay, this is not priority now, so you can just focus on some other defect. In that case, priority can be changed. Priority can be changed by the product owner or business analyst, or is given the requirement to you, he has choice to change the priority. But seriousness, nobody can change. Only that is a tester responsibility. So in interview, people may ask you question, who will give you severity and priority? Tester should provide the severity and priority. Okay, so but priority can be changed. Priority can be changed by the developer also sometimes, and business analyst also can change the priority. But severity should not change. That is a tester responsibility. If you want to change the severity, tester itself has to change, but developers and business analysts, these people will not touch the severity, because as a tester, you have tested your application, you have executed test cases, you know exactly how much business will be impacted because of the seriousness of the bug. So seriousness you have to tell, but priority when that bug should be fixed will be decided by you first initial level, and later developer or business analyst may or may not change the priority. That is up to them. Okay, so this is a defect priority. Okay, so the categorization, everything we have to do as a tester. We have to decide based on the defect. You have to analyze, okay, which is high or not, and priority, what kind of severity I have to give to this defect, and what kind of priority I have to provide. So as a tester, you should decide. I have given some examples, so that's the reason I clearly explained here. So when I talking about severity, blocker, critical, major, minor, depends upon the seriousness of the defect. You have to decide whether it is a blocker, or it is a critical, or it is a major, or it is a minor. You have to decide, and you have to provide the severity. Similarly, you have to provide the priority while reporting the defects. How soon it should fixed. So if you want to fix the defect immediately by the developer, then give P0. Or sometimes you may also expect the same fix in the next version, then you can give P1. Or the defect is not that much important now, but in future, in the upcoming releases, the developer can work on it. In that case, you can just give P2 priority. So that is completely your responsibility as a tester to categorize the severities and priorities. Understand, guys, everyone? So defect, priority, and severity. Very, very important topic. All right. So can you guys please confirm in the chat window? Are you guys clear so far? All right. Now, sometimes interview people may ask you very, very important scenarios. There are certain situations the bugs will fall under high severity and low, high severity and priority, or low severity and priority, the combinations. Like the bug can be fall under high severity and high priority, or the bug can fall under high severity and low priority, and sometimes the bug fall under low severity and high priority, and sometimes the bug fall under low severity and low priority. So different categories. And can you tell some examples? This is again in interview people may ask this kind of questions. Can you tell me few examples of high severity and high priority, high severity and low priority? Similarly, low severity and high priority, and low severity and low priority. So you should able to give some examples. So here I'll provide you multiple examples, and you can remember and you can clearly explain it. Just understand the situation. So I have a bug like this. Login is taking to blank page. So as soon as I enter username and password, I clicking on the submit button, and it is not giving a home page. It is just giving a blank page after login is successful. It is just giving a blank page. I don't know whether login is successful or not. I don't know anything. Just it is giving a blank page. Then what is the priority and what is the severity you will assign to that bug? So what is a severity, what is a priority you have to assign to the bug, and how we have to assign? Observe this very carefully. First, we have to think about severity. So login is not working means what? You are not able to proceed further. That means you have completely blocked. So when I say blocked, it means what? High severity. That comes under high severity. Blocked. Now, think about priority. So when you want to fix that bug, immediately you want to fix that bug, right? If I not fix that bug, you cannot continue further immediately, the time. So priority is also very high. So this is comes under high severity and high priority. If login is not working means what? You completely blocked. At the same time, until unless that bug is fixed, you cannot proceed further. Immediately you want to fix that. So you have to give high severity and high priority. That is one example. Now, high severity, high severity and low priority. So this is the area I'm talking about. Okay, so high severity and low priority. Now observe this situation. About link is not going to a blank page, is going to a blank page. For example, you successfully log into our application. As soon as you log into your application, you will see some menu options there, right? Like home page or contact page, like about page, something like that. You will see multiple options there. As soon as you enter into the login page, immediately you will see those options. In that, when you click on the about us link, it is giving a blank page. So when you click on the about link page, it is giving a blank page. You are not able to see any content there. This is a bug. So now what could be the severity and what could be the priority? So you have to analyze it. So about a link is not going to blank page. So it is comes under high severity and low priority. So high severity, low priority. Why? Let me tell you. So this is comes under high severity and low priority. So why it is become high severe? High severe. Why it is become high severe? Because as a user, when I first log into my application, what are the options I can see? Home page, contact, about, these links I can see. And I can perform click action on the about us. If it is not going to the actual page, it is not going to the actual page. That means the functionality is broken there. The functionality is broken. So high severity. And do you want to fix it immediately? About page, is it really required to fix now? Not required, because that's the only page which is just not giving the information, but you are able to proceed the testing for other things, right? So it is not that much important now. So developer also can fix in the next version, right? So you can give low priority. So but the functionality is broken here. Because of that, we have to give high severity, but this is not needed to fix immediately. Okay, so we can give the low priority. So high severity and the low priority. Now next example, see this: low severity, high priority. Low severity, high priority. After user is logged into application, he can see home page, but there is a spelling mistake in the home page. Observe this. So user is logged into application, successfully logged in. As soon as I see the pages, there is a home page tab is there, and there is a spelling mistake in that. There is a spelling mistake in the home page. like something M is missing or P is missing, then what kind of category it is? It is low severity because that is not impacting the business. When I click on the link, it is working fine. Only the spelling mistake. So that will not break your functionality or it will not break your application. So severity level is very low, but which is high priority. Why it is high priority? Because as a user, as a customer, as soon as I log into application, the what is the first I can see? The tabs. So user always log into application, first he will see home page, but inner pages he may not navigate more detail. But as a home page, everybody will see home page first. So if in the home page, if we can see some mistakes or spelling mistake, it doesn't good, like it doesn't looks good, right? It will be very odd. So in the home pages, there should not be any spelling mistakes. It should not looks very odd. So customer point of view, user point of view, this is very, very high priority. But severity is very low because home pages link is displaying. When I click on this, it is properly navigating to the home page and functionality is working fine, only the spelling mistake. So it is not impacting the business. But as a customer point of view or user point of view, it should be fixed very soon. So high priority, low severity and high priority. That is one example. Now, low severity and low priority. This one, low severity and low priority. Suppose you in your application, uh, we have a contact page. So when you click on the contact page, the contact details are displayed on the page. So like email ID, phone number, addresses, everything is displayed on the contact page. Somewhere, so email ID is having some small spelling mistake. Email ID is having a small spelling mistake, like L is missing or M is missing, something like that. So this comes under low priority and low severity. Observe this very carefully. So what is the difference between here and here? Both are spelling mistakes only, right? But why here it becomes a low severity and high priority? But here it is also spelling mistake. But why here it is becomes a low severity and a low priority? Okay, in both the cases low severity because here also it is not impacting the application and here also it is not impacting the application workflow. There is no functionality is broken, so it is a lower severity, fine. But why it is become high priority here and why it is become low priority here? Both are spelling mistakes, right? But the reason is, here as soon as a user enter into the application, he will able to see the home page link. It will appear in front of him. It looks very odd. So that's the reason it becomes a high priority. He has to fix it. Developer has to fix it. But when you come to this area, contact page link is working, and when you enter the contact page, you will find all the details. Among all the details, somewhere email ID is spelling mistake, but most of the users may not notice that, and somewhere in the corner area those details are displayed. So every time user will not go to contact page every time, but user is always see the home page, but user will not go to contact page every time. Very rare cases he will go, and small issue maybe that is not noticeable also. So that is the reason here it becomes a low priority, and the same kind of issue here it becomes a high priority. So it depends upon the user's perspective. You have to think. User point of view, you have to think. Then we can give proper priority and severities. So these are the few examples of high severity and priority and low severity and priorities. The combinations. In interview, people may definitely ask you this kind of question. You should be able to answer this. And here I have given a few more examples. Just a moment. Yeah. So here a few more examples I have given. Low priority and low severity. A spelling mistake in a page not frequently navigated by user. A spelling mistake in a page not frequently navigated to by user. So there is a spelling mistake in the page, but always users will not see the page every time. So that is a low priority and low severity. An application crashing in some very corner cases. Application is crashing in some very corner case. See this, low priority and high severity. Application crashing, that is always high severity. Crashing means severity, high severity. But why it is become low priority? Because very corner case. Users may not go into that area most of the times. So we can give low priority. High priority, low severity. So slight change in logo color or spelling mistake in a company name. So these are high priority. There is no low severity because this will not impact any business. Logo color and mistake spelling mistakes will not impact any business. But as a customer point of view, there should be proper. So high priority. Customer will see the logo first. They will see the company name is there on application or not. If they seems very incorrect, so customer will feel bad. So they are high priority and low severity. Similarly, high priority, high severity. Issue with the login functionality. User is not able to log into application. That is always high priority and high severity. Then high severity and low priority. One more example. High severity and low priority. Web page not found when user clicks on the link. User does not visit the page generally. See this. When I click on the some link, the page is not found error is coming. That means a crash. So high severity. But user does not visit the page normally. Very rare cases the user go to that page. So low priority. The last one, low priority, low severity. Any cosmetic or spelling issue. Cosmetic in the sense spelling mistakes, alignment, colors. These are all comes under cosmetic functionality. So any cosmetic or spelling issues which is within a paragraph or in a page comes under low priority and low severities. So just remember a few examples like this, and in interview it will be very easy to explain the things. Okay, so we have discussed what is exactly defect and bug, and what are the defect contents we have, and also we have discussed what is the severity and what is the priority, and also different combinations of priorities and severities. Okay, so probably in the next session, yeah, so there will be another point called defect resolution. So whenever you reported a defect, the developer will update one column called defect resolution, guys. So this is a actual column which is updated by the developer. And in interview, people may ask you one question: what is defect resolution? Which is very very important. So whenever you report a defect to the developer has some opinion on the defect, like whether is it really a defect or not, or is it a duplicate defect. That means the tester is already raised earlier, or developer think it is not at all a bug, not at all a defect, or developer not able to reproduce the defect in their environment. So whenever you report a defect to the developer, so developer is having their own opinion on the defect. That is basically called as defect resolution. What kind of opinion developer is having? Suppose the resolution types will be different. So when I say resolution type is accept, that means what? Developer is accepted that is a defect and he is ready to fix it. And sometimes the defects a developer is specified reject as a defect resolution. In that case, what? We reported a defect, but developer is not accepted that is a defect. He is rejected. He is not ready to fix it. Then duplicate. So when the resolution type is duplicate means what? Developer is think that is a duplicate defect. That means we already raised the defect earlier. So that is a duplicate. Enhancement. Enhancement is what? Sometimes we reported a defect and developers think it not exactly defect. That's a enhancement or new feature which will come in the next coming versions or coming releases. Sometimes we can misunderstand like a bug is a feature or feature is a bug. So that's the reason we have to carefully read the requirements. Then we will know exactly which one is a bug, which one is a enhancement or feature. And need more information. Sometimes developer come back and ask you for need more information about the defect. In that case, you can provide more information like screenshot, steps, or log files, everything. And not reproducible means what? You reported the bug to the developer, but developer is trying to reproduce the bug in their environment, but it is not able to do that. There is a defect in application in your environment. When you test it in your environment, you found the defect, but the same defect is not coming in the dev environment. In that case, developer says not reproducible and fixed. So whenever defect is accepted by the developer and fix it, then he say resolution type is fixed. Then finally, as designed. As designed means what? Whenever you reported a bug to the developer think that is not a defect, that is an actual functionality. It should supposed to work like that. If the developer feels like that, he specify as designed. Okay, that is not really bug, that should work like that only. So it depends on the requirement. So as developer says as designed. So these are the different resolution types. So resolution type is also one of the column should be specified in the bug report or defect report, and that column is always updated by the developer, not by the tester. Okay, while reporting the defect in the tool also, there will be some field, so resolution type. So developer has to select that file, tester don't have any right to select that field. Developer, when he working on the defect, he has to change the resolution type. Okay, so that is all about defect resolution, guys. So that is all about defect resolution. Now let us stop here for today, guys. So still we have few more things we have to discuss about defect, like defect life cycles and everything. So now let us continue the tomorrow session. Okay, so I'm just stopping here.